Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Figure Forecast podcast with your host Scarlett and my lovely co-host Maeve. Today we have Romana Skotzen on the show. Romana is a WPD athlete, but originally turned pro in figure. She has had a fantastic competitive season this year. So we do want to touch on kind of that with her, but not only that is something that she is doing, but she is also a specialist in blood work and does work for Eval. So this is why we wanted to get her on to cover all things blood work. So yeah, I'll pass you over to Romana and she can introduce herself and tell everybody about this year and yeah, fill us all in.
Yeah, God. So I've been bodybuilding since 2018. And yeah, I started off in figure, PCA, toned figure, and sort of worked my way up. I did four PCA shows before moving over to NPC. And I did Amateur Olympia, and then lockdown year, I did the Two Bros British Finals, and that's where I got my pro card in figure. I I was much more suited to the NPC route, with the style of posing and lack of routines, which is ironic now I'm WPD, but yeah, I've had more time in the world of bodybuilding to kind of get to grips with the posing and the routine side of things. So yeah, I turned pro in lockdown and I competed in 2021. I did two figure pro shows, Poland and Budapest. I came top 10 in Poland and then was like 16th with some of the other British athletes in Budapest. Um, Ended up switching coaches to Tom from Evolution Training and yeah, spent 18 months with him in an off season before going into prep for WPD Pro debut. Did the Toronto Pro and came second, and then yeah, won the M Pro Classic back in June, and yeah, won my ticket to the Olympia, which is still friggin' mental. So I think I'm 8 weeks. That's what I worked it out as the other day. 8 weeks out from the Olympia now, so just back in prep after I had about 6 weeks of kind of recovery time between M Pro and going back into prep, where it was yeah, just sort of increased calories, but also being quite relaxed, having spent since January on prep and going back into prep again. So I will have been on prep for most of this year, which has been fun. Oops, excuse me. And
What
yeah,
made you,
after M Pro, sorry.
I was going to say, what made you, what pushed you to change into WPD? Because obviously
Yeah.
I follow you and I know that you've said on posts and things like you're so much more yourself and suited to that class. But like, what was it that made that push? Like, was it?
It sounds silly, but it's the heels.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I get
I'm
that.
shocking. Like I've been in the ambulance service for 18 years, rocked around in steel toe cap boots and trainers all the time, and trying to, yeah, be all sassy in high heels. It's just not very me. And as much as I love the figure quarter turns and the individual presentation, there's an aspect of freedom and creativity that you can get in WPD that is a little bit more restricted in figure. You know, we do get to do a routine, and the difference between IFBB Pro League and the sort of PCA routines is you PCA seems to be very much tailored towards dancing background, and I have zero dancing background. So WPD routine is just you can be so much more about poses and that transition from a pose to a pose without it necessarily being like a complete dance routine. So it's that sort of element of freedom and creativity really that you get with WPD that's a little bit more constrained with figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was the transition? Like, because it's a big jump again. Like I went bikini to figure and that was a massive jump. And then I would imagine going from figure to WPD is insane as well.
Well, something that I realized from the 2 pro shows that I did in figure is I tend to come in, my glutes get striated pretty early on in prep, like 8 weeks now. And then no, I've been on a pretty serious prep before, but my glutes are coming in already. So the softness that they look for in figure, I don't really have. I tend to go from being quite high body fat to really striated very quickly in the places that figure actually wants that little bit more coverage of with a bit more residual body fat. So we knew that condition wouldn't be a problem. It was a case of size, and that's why I took such a long time off. I mean, I'd not done that long an off season since I started bodybuilding, so that was interesting. I definitely was very, very grateful to have my partner Dan in my life, because he was very encouraging with it, which I think as a female, to push food and push body weight, society can get a little bit restrictive with that as well. So to be in an environment where I was comfortable being heavier and comfortable putting the food away was really, really, really productive to that off season, because I don't think I would have been able to push it as hard without somebody like him just there, like, come on, eat, let's go out, we're gonna go and eat. And it's like, oh, so much food. I definitely found that harder than any prep situation, the actual growing off season side of.
And even feeling comfortable enough in that relationship and environment to get bigger. And, you know, like, because a lot of girls are probably holding back because they don't want to be like super muscular, and then maybe their boyfriend doesn't compete and he's just like good looking but very regular kind of unique. So I'd say it would be very difficult to push to those levels if your partner wasn't super supportive.
Yeah, I mean, I was single for quite a long time before Dan and I met, and had dated people, and they were always like maybe a gym goer rather than somebody that was an actual bodybuilder. And even I was normally sort of at the beginning of a prep situation when that would sort of naturally happen. And even getting their head round, so you want to be in bed at 8:30 and you've got to get up and do your cardio, and then you're finishing work and you're going to the gym. Well, when am I going to get to see you? Well, sorry, I'm a pro bodybuilder. What did you expect?
Yeah.
And there was always that, oh, well, do you have to? Yes, I do. This is who I am. So yeah, ta-ra kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So it is, it's definitely,
I feel you.
helpful.
Single for life.
I wonder, is there like Tinder for bodybuilders? Is that a thing?
It needs something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's people, you just don't get it. And I don't know whether sort of male bodybuilders have the same issue with that level of understanding, but yeah, it does seem to be when you're a female, it's like, oh, you're strong, don't get stronger than me, oh, don't get bigger than me. It's like, well, work on yourself then.
Yeah, you need to
Keep
get bigger.
up.
Yeah. Amazing. And how did you get started with Eval and kind of go into the blood stuff? Because you were obviously in NHS as a paramedic, right? And did that kind of, you know, just naturally lead into it?
So yeah, I've been in the ambulance service since 2005, and I'm gonna say it was 2022. I went to a FitX show that my friend Kelly was competing in, and it was the first time I'd sort of really seen Eval. They had a stand there and some flyers and stuff like that, and I just was really cheeky, and on Instagram I popped them a message and I was like, are you looking for a phlebotomist in the Exeter area? I'm a paramedic. And about 2 days later, I'm having a chat with Dave Crossland, which was so surreal, just like looking at my phone, Dave Crossland ringing it. And yeah, had a chat with him, and he was like, right, okay, we'll send you all the bits and bobs. And that was literally it. It was a conversation over the phone. And he was like, yeah, we've got a massive gap in that area. Let's get you set up. So yeah, before I knew it, I had people coming to the house to get their blood work done. And I think the first gym clinic I did was in Sup's gym, Weston-super-Mare, where literally it's just like a drop in, and you just we have them dotted around. They're always advertised on the Eval website or the Eval Instagram page. You know, gym clinic I did King's on Sunday just gone. Trying to get another couple booked in before I move to Suffolk at the Grey Room and Sups. But yeah, it's just that opportunity to go into gyms and that there's no like, oh, I've got to book and wait. It's literally pitch up. It takes 10-15 minutes. You get your blood work done. You get your results in 4 to 5 working days. So that works really well. And yeah, having set that up with Dave, it's yeah, we've had some busy clinics. There's a few I do down that sort of way, but yeah, it was pretty quick to get me up and running with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you find that since you started to now that more people are actually going and getting their blood work done, because obviously it is more available, but it's something that people genuinely want to do? Because I feel like if you think of a couple of years ago, people didn't really do it, did they? It was just
They've kind of started to realize the importance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was something that you may try and get through your GP if you were lucky and potentially lied about why you needed your blood work done. After my 2021 prep, my hormones just completely crashed, and I was able to get my blood work done by my GP. And it's quite rare, but they actually did my testosterone as well, which I get a lot of women will say, oh, my GP's agreed to do my bloods, but they've refused to do testosterone because they don't feel that it's important. Well, newsflash, yes, women have testosterone, and yes, it's really, really important to their homeostatic balance, It's, yeah, I think it's becoming more commonplace, and people are definitely more aware of how important it is to get blood work done on a regular basis, especially if you are using anabolics. Knowing where you're at is really important.
For people who are maybe, I don't know, a little bit newer to competing, or maybe just working with a shit coach that doesn't kind of suggest this, how important is it? Whether you are, using PGs or whether you're competing naturally, can you just kind of reiterate to people how important it really is for them to kind of take note of this?
So the mention of being natural and the importance, yeah, people I think get a bit complacent. Oh, I'm not using PEDs, I don't need to get my blood work done. As a female, it's especially important because when you're in that severe caloric deficit, you're not going to be producing the same hormone levels that you were before. And there is, unfortunately, there are side effects where your hormones may take months to come back or maybe never come back. So knowing where you're at, blood work, before you go into that dieting phase, after that dieting phase, before you're then starting another, any sort of mini cut or anything like that, knowing what your hormones are actually doing, knowing where your cholesterol is as a female is really important. I've had conversations with people where, yeah, they are natural and they're like, I've got very little hormones. Should I start thinking about HRT? Well, what's your cholesterol doing? What sources of cholesterol have you got in your diet? Are you actually feeding your body the building blocks to be able to build those hormones after that dieting phase? There is this tendency to be quite conservative coming out of a dieting phase, coming out of a prep. And actually, as a female, we need to be boosting those good dietary fats to help, bring back that hormone production. Because as a female, when we diet, our bodies are going to find the most sort of energy effective way to survive. And one of the first things to go is our hormone production. Because if you're not fueling your body's going to ditch the thing that it needs the least, which is in a dieting phase, making babies. Ultimately, that's as females what we're designed to do, and that's what our body, whether our mind wants us to or not, that's what our body is geared up to do. So when we go into a dieting phase, that shuts down because we're trying to conserve the energy that we're eating. So it is really important to make sure that all those levels are in a good spot after a dieting phase or before you go into a dieting phase. Because if you're already on the back foot, then you're going to come into some serious problems towards the end of that dieting phase.
Yeah, for sure. I do think definitely people who compete naturally are probably a little bit less likely. Sometimes I think it is obviously a lot more popular now, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knows they have to get it done.
Yeah.
How often do you recommend, whether, you know, to people who compete naturally and people then who are assisted, how often would you recommend getting them done?
So the kind of it's obviously a little bit constrained by finances
Yeah.
because it ain't cheap. If you can swing it to get it done by your GP, then get it done as frequently as possible. I do know some people who are anabolic users who have long-term medical conditions, and their GP will run their blood work to make sure that they're healthy with their pre-existing medical condition. Not that I recommend obviously using anabolics if you have a pre-existing medical condition, but if you do, then ensure that you are getting really regular blood work. So if finances are an issue, twice a year as a bare minimum, but 4 times a year ideally. Um, People seem to have this kind of mindset of, oh, I'll give it 8 weeks per cycle and then I'll get my blood work done. No, get it done as soon as you finish the cycle. Get it done mid-cycle. Get it done mid-diet phase, end of. You want to gather as much data as possible of what your blood work is doing at different points of the year. You know, are you in the best health possible to be doing that diet phase? At the end of that cycle, what damage has it done? What do you need to look at to rectify? Rather than waiting 8 weeks for hormones to start actually coming back. Well, they could come back quicker if your cholesterol's low. Well, you need to boost your cholesterol. You need to start supplementing with omega-3s if you're not. It's to say get it done January, April, August, November is a bit constrictive. It's what you're doing within that year and gathering that data to see how healthy you are at those different phases of that year. You know, you could be mid prep and actually your hormones and your cholesterol are absolutely tanked. Or, as a male anabolic user, your red blood cell count might be through the roof and you need a bloodlet, which is the other side of things. For males, they have to look at that a lot more than we do as females because of the level of anabolics they're using. But there's all these different markers that will give you lots of different information about where your health is at. Why wouldn't you want to try and get that as frequently as possible?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that people like will kind of have an idea that something is a little bit off, but they're a bit scared to go and get the bloods done? Like, because I think you can tell, like, especially as a woman, like when something isn't quite right, like if you obviously you're going to be tired when you're in prep and stuff, but like, like really long fatigue, taking ages to recover, like just like them signs that you can kind of tell in yourself that are a little bit off. Like, do you think that people do just put it off because they don't want to know?
Yeah, I do. I was guilty of it after that 2021 prep. I knew that my hormones were completely fried. I knew it because I was sleeping 10 hours a night. I remember I was meant to meet some mates for a walk about 20-minute drive away. And I got in the car, got to where we were going for a walk, and I was like, I think I need to have a nap before we even do this. But I was in bed at 8 o'clock the night before and didn't get up until 8 a.m. Massive amounts of brain fog, couldn't remember anything, couldn't concentrate, couldn't watch TV. Just felt really emotionally numb to everything. Like my dial didn't move. I wasn't happy, I wasn't sad, I was just
Flat.
constantly on a single level. And yeah, when I went and got my blood work done, I had zero hormones at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there is that. Oh, if I leave it long enough, it will come back. But like I said before, you could be doing something to help bring that back
Yeah.
rather than suffering with the symptoms.
When females come to you, typically, what are some of the most common issues that would kind of present themselves in blood work?
As in what are their results or
Yeah,
what
like what are the
symptoms do they
really
come from?
common kind of things that crop up that you would see in results?
I mean, the issue is I don't always have my client or people, people come to me for the phlebotomy, come to have the sample taken, but then they won't necessarily come to me with their results afterwards. The few that I have had consultations with, it generally is, lower estrogen, lower testosterone with a corresponding low cholesterol count. So the recommendations from Dave, whenever you get results from Eval, they're always analysed by Dave, and a summary is sent out. Within that, it breaks down each marker that has been analysed, if there's anything wrong with it, and then what steps to take to improve it. So I have been working with a woman who was suffering really bad fatigue, really sort of, again, emotionally kind of not really moving very far. And basically through conversations with her, one of the things that was highlighted was that she was, like we were saying before, still being very restrictive with her calories. Even in an off season, she would be worried about going above 1,800 calories a day and she was wanting to progress into figure. So it's like, actually, what you need to be doing is we need to be bumping those calories up. And we've sort of had quite a few back and forth consultations where we've looked at what she has been eating, talked about how she can increase those calories without necessarily maxing out her appetite, and doing it sort of cleanly without resorting to McDonald's. And because that's the other thing, it's like, it's all very well increasing your calorie intake, but trying to do it without maxing out your appetite and trying to do it cleanly is really important as well. So yeah, we've been working on that, and her blood work has seen an improvement, as well as her energy levels and sort of concentration and that sort of thing. So that is, yeah, the thing I get most females talking to me about is, I'm still feeling tired. These are my calories. And it's like, actually, you should be eating a lot more than that, a lot more than you think, especially if you're wanting to grow.
When it comes to it's like assisted females then, and if they are like maybe doing something for the first time, or whatnot, and then using obviously the bloods to keep a track of that, to not go too far, how often would you say like doing that? Because obviously, like, you can pick up on your own sides and stuff, but in terms of keeping things in a better place, would you say that's the best thing to do?
As in repeat blood work, if you are a female using us on cycle, definitely. I would recommend sort of more frequent blood work for that, pre-cycle, post-cycle, post sort of being off as well. What is happening to your hormones during that phase? What, are you using too much? We can gather that information from what your testosterone levels are doing. It's really important to, if you are wanting to avoid, the virilization, using blood work, but also, again, how you're feeling and how you're sort of looking, and whether you are getting any unwanted symptoms, hair growth, clitoral enlargement, those sorts of things. It's using blood work as well as how you're feeling and what you're noticing to help form that picture of, is this dosage too much for me? Because we are all different. And one person that maybe needs 4 milligrams of femtest to keep them in super physiological a week, another female might need 6, another one might need 2. Other females may start experiencing hair loss if they start increasing their femtest dosage or introducing Anavar. That's quite a common side effect, is thinning of the hair around the sort of crown of the head when you are using those compounds. So it's a tool to help as well as how you're feeling. But I would say, especially if you're looking for virilization, you want to be looking at your physical symptoms on your body as well as your blood work, to help kind of indicate whether you're heading in that direction, because the blood work may not show that those changes are happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really interesting when kind of girls are like, oh, but I don't know my testosterone, or like, I don't need to get it tested, or like, that's a men's hormone, but obviously we all have it and we all need it. And one of the first things Dave had said to me when I first got my bloods done, that my test levels was just, they were tanked, like they were gone. So obviously since we've implemented everything to fix that, and they're A-okay, and I feel much better, and fatigue is not absolutely killing me, so that's lovely. But can you just explain why it is important for females to number one, take that test, and like what kind of levels it should be at, or what level would raise concern for you?
So I've had, for example, when I had my own blood work done, my testosterone level came back unreadable. And my GP was like, yep, your hormones are fine. And I was like, but my testosterone it was like 0.004, less than 0.004. And you have to forgive me, my memory with numbers and ranges, it's obviously on the blood work, but to spout it off the top of my head, I'm not so good at. But basically, when you get your blood work results, there's the normal range, and that's clearly printed on the results, the sample results. Anything lower is obviously going to be causing you symptoms, and those fatigues, that poor recovery, your strength might be down. When we're looking at raising testosterone levels, we want to consider, are we wanting to bring this person back into a normal range for a female, or are they a bodybuilder and are they wanting that super physiological range? So I wouldn't be recommending as a bikini competitor that you need a testosterone level that's super physiological, because of the level of muscle mass required. As a WPD IFBB pro, you are going to be looking for a super physiological level of testosterone because you are wanting to build that muscle and you are wanting to push that boundary. So it's kind of dependent on the individual and their goals and their aims. Being in range is obviously ideal, especially if you are, your first time competitor, a PCA competitor, bikini competitor. We want to be looking for having testosterone in range. If it's lower, the first thing I'd be doing is looking at your diet rather than looking at implementing any sort of HRT. I would also always recommend, if your hormones do come back low, instead of just going to your coach and saying, this is what my hormones are, can I start running some femtest, please? What age are you? Where are you with your diet? Do you actually want to start using an anabolic as a form of HRT? Or would you be better placed going to your GP and getting referred to an endocrinologist who can actually look at implementing some HRT through the NHS? That would be my gold standard go-to, is rather than start messing around with something that's made in bathtub, if your hormones are low, your GP is your first port of call. And it can be extremely frustrating. I've had, clients that have come to me saying, my GP's turned me away. And it's about knowing what to say. And it's like, look, I am symptomatic of having low hormones. Yes, it might be diet and exercise, but can you please refer me to an endocrinologist to make sure that there isn't something more sinister going on, that I'm not, this isn't early onset menopause. I would always recommend trying to get hormones sorted through the NHS rather than somebody who has done their PT course and now is an online coach. Unfortunately, it does happen a lot. And there are recommendations for people that really shouldn't be looking at femtests to start running femtests when actually there's other ways and means around it first.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but I know in Ireland, like I had reached out to different clinics there, and they wouldn't even listen to me. They're like, "No, you're not in menopause," and I'm like, "How do you know that?" Like, they're like, "You're 30, I'm not talking to you," and I'm like, "What?" Like, it just doesn't. Yeah, it's extremely difficult there. I'm sure the UK is probably similar. So I think it's just about knowing what to say and kind of standing your ground.
Yeah, it is that. We used to go to a doctor with a list of symptoms. This is what I'm suffering with, and then they turn around and say, "I think this is wrong with you." Unfortunately, now GPs are expected to have such a broad knowledge that sometimes going in and being like, "I don't know what's wrong with me, but I would like a referral to an endocrinologist, please, or I would like my blood work done, please." We have to ask them a little bit more for what we want. And that can sometimes end in a more productive outcome than if you kind of just go in going, "I don't know what's wrong with me. Actually, I'd like some blood work done, please. Can you look at this, please?"
Yeah, cool. You mentioned cholesterol quite a bit in the last few minutes. So what would you say is kind of important to kind of consider around there? What kind of maybe dietary adaptations can you make to improve it and that kind of stuff?
So obviously we've got a good cholesterol and our bad cholesterol.
Mm.
The issue is with good cholesterol, that's one of the building blocks for our hormones. So if our cholesterol's low, we want to be looking at increasing that good cholesterol, good sources of dietary fats, you know, your nuts, your dark chocolate, your avocado, oils, as well as supplementing with, you know, a good quality omega-3 that's bioavailable. You know, going to Tesco's and buying one for $1.99 probably isn't going to cut it. If you're really on a budget, then it's going to be better than nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is important to make sure that our good cholesterol is at a level to sustain our hormonal balance. And then obviously when you start running a cycle, that can deplete that good cholesterol because it's using it to help manufacture the hormones. So actually, yeah, we want to be supplementing, especially if you're on cycle, with a good quality omega-3 krill oil, those sorts of things.
Yeah,
Love the krill.
I do.
Love the krill.
Although it has a nice after
Oh,
taste when
Nighttime
you
only.
got too
It's
much.
nighttime only. It's vile.
yeah, it's not fun, is it? That like mid leg press set, you're like, oh,
It's nasty. I got one and the packet, one of the capsules had burst. So like I opened it and I was like, oh, I couldn't. I was just like, no, that needs to go in the bin. I tried to, and I was like, no, can't do it.
no, just stinks, doesn't it? And yeah, doesn't taste nice.
No, absolutely vile.
Is there any other like sort of health supplements that you would like recommend as a whole, like to keep people on top, as like, because obviously I know there's so much that we can have, and you know they are expensive, and it is just that kind of 1 to 2%, like, you know, if you've got your diet and everything in check and stuff, it does help that little bit, doesn't it, to keep you more
Yeah.
healthier. But for people who are like maybe wanting to just get like what they need, like to be a little bit better, if diet is in a good place, what would you sort of recommend in terms of that for healthness? It's not a word.
Just help.
I mean, you can go completely mental on it. I mean, Dan has so many supplements. I swear he rattles when he walks. Personally, I'm really shit at remembering to take my supplements. As Dan sort of nags me at it, but a good quality multivitamin, a good quality vitamin DK, a good quality omega are definitely up there. I'm also a massive fan of magnesium at night, helping sleep,
Yeah.
helping recovery. So yeah, those would be my sort of go-to. And obviously, like I find ashwagandha is really nice to sort of just help bring that cortisol stress level down as well, especially at night. So it's not necessarily a health supplement, but it definitely, if you get sleep in a good place, then the rest kind of follows. So yeah, some magnesium and ashwagandha at night time is definitely a go-to for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have them in. They're awesome. Awesome.
100%.
When it comes to the other kind of side of assisted kind of blood markers and females in particular, would you say that there are any, I don't know, like day-to-day telltale signs that maybe people should take more notice of, that should be like a hint or a kind of a push to go and get bloods done? Because I think as females, we're so like resilient and we're fine. We deal with it. We push through it. Like, you know, we're a bit tougher in that regard than guys, I think. So I think maybe sometimes we can kind of pass off a lot of symptoms or things that, you know, should probably worry us a little bit more.
I think a big one is fatigue and concentration. If you're sleeping, like I said earlier, if you're sleeping like 10 hours a night and you're getting to 4 o'clock and you're like, I really need a nap,
Mm.
or your alarm's going off at 8 o'clock and you're snoozing, and before you know it's 10 o'clock and you just can't catch up on sleep. Yeah, it might well be that you're actually burning the candle at both ends, but it's probably a good point to sort of think, actually, do you know what? I need to see where my hormones are at, because it's different in a prep situation because you're always tired. But if you're in off season and you're not like carb coma sleepy, and you're getting a decent level of sleep a night, but you're still struggling in the afternoons to stay awake, or you're still there at 11 o'clock in the morning at work thinking, I really need to have a sleep, then that would definitely be an indicator to me to go and get my hormones checked. If after a good night's sleep, you're still not feeling refreshed day after day after day. The concentration, are you struggling to focus on your work? Are you struggling to even watch a rubbish series on Netflix? Again, outside of a prep situation, because we all know where fatigue, where concentration goes with that. Brain fog. If anyone has experienced brain fog, it's different to just forgetting why you walked in the kitchen. It's literally like, why have I got this email open and I'm halfway through writing a reply? What am I saying? That it's like thinking through toffee. You just cannot make it, cannot focus. You just sit there with no thoughts. Those definitely are indicators that you should be getting your blood work done. Like I mentioned before, hair falling out. If you're noticing that more hair is falling out, then we all molt as females, it's everywhere. But if it's big clumps, something else, nails splitting, not just like when you bash them, but if they're growing through and you're getting splits in your nails, you probably think, what's going on here? That should also be a sign that maybe blood work maybe you're deficient in something, maybe your hormones are off. I had my blood work done the other week because of that. It was that sort of, it was due to get them done anyway, but I said to Dan, I was like, my nails are not good. I think it's probably a good chance that, I mean, luckily my blood work was in a really good spot. And we think sometimes it can come through dietary changes, or I was massively stressed back at the beginning of the year. So it could be something like that. But yeah, nails, hair, skin being dull, getting more breakouts, those would be indicators to me to let's see where my hormones are at.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I had mine done. Well, I had an operation on like my ovaries like a few years ago. So like not related to kind of prep and stuff, but that a few months after that operation, obviously my hormones were a complete mess because it was like down there and everything like that. And my hair started to fall out like massively, like to the point where I was actually at the hairdressers and she was like, I don't even want to brush your hair, like this is bad. And so I was just freaked out and I was like, right, I need to get my bloods done, because like, even though I've had this operation and the doctors say I'm fine, I was like, I'm not fine because I'm receding. And yeah, like my hormones were just completely like just off the scale. Like testosterone, thyroid, everything was just non-existent. So I think definitely like that them things that you said there are massive to pick up on, because like we have a few bits that fall out now and again, but when it's, you don't even want to put a bobble in your hair in case your hair falls out. It was awful.
It can be quite severe. I've had several friends that have reported they can't use Anavar because it will massively make their hair fall out, but it is also a sign of low hormonal environment as well. So it's kind of thinking back, what have I done? Have I been on Anavar or have I not been? It could be a side effect, or it could be a side effect of your hormones. I mean, ultimately it would be Anavar's effect on your hormones, but what I'm saying is it something external that's causing that, or is it something going on within your body that you need to get looked at?
Because I find this so interesting. We've had a few conversations recently, and be it kind of coaches, competitors, And obviously, for a long time, Anavar was the drug of choice for females. It was the first port of call. It's just what you do. It's you don't have to stick pins in your bum, and it's like a vitamin, right? So I think
Yeah.
people were a lot more comfortable going down that road. But what would you say specifically to that compound? What kind of issues can come up, either on your person or on your blood work, obviously, particularly? Does that particular compound cause particular issues, or would it all be kind of one?
So when it comes to using anabolics, there is this massive preconception that Anavar is safe. By its nature, it's an oral, so it will have more of a hit on your liver to start off with, because that's where it's metabolized, as opposed to, when you inject, you're less likely to have liver involvement in metabolizing it. So it tends to take less of a hit. So yeah, liver's one thing. The problem with Anavar is it's used in prep. Prep can often be 20, 22, 24, 26 weeks, a long old time. And then I've had conversations with females that have had Anavar introduced at the 20-week out phase at a dosage of 10 milligrams and ran the whole duration of their prep. And when we're looking at these sorts of things, it's not necessarily the dosage that's the problem, it's the duration of exposure. And basically, the longer you expose yourself to those hormones, the more likelihood you will be of having some virilization effects. My voice took a hit from too long a cycle of Anavar. Um, it's like being exposed to those male hormones and going through a puberty effectively. That doesn't mean to say that you can run 50 milligrams of Anavar for 6 weeks and be absolutely fine. No. But it is, we tend to, if we utilize Anavar, I think Dan's talking about a 6-week run of Anavar for this prep, keeping the exposure as minimal as possible, because it is that length of time that you are on that compound for that can then push you through those virilization sort of gateways, so to speak. And sometimes that effect may be transient. It may return after you come off the cycle. I know when I'm on cycle, my voice does tend to drop a little bit deeper, and then when I'm off cycle, it will go back up again. But it is a lower tone now because of that initial cycle of Anavar. So yeah, it's definitely worth considering the dosage and the duration that you're on the compound for, and not pushing that for too long, and risking that exposure duration.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any kind of health subs, like like milk thistle or liver support or vitamin E or whatever? Is there any other ones that you would recommend maybe people supplement with if they are going down the Anavar route?
Yeah, anything that has a sort of protective or boosting factor to the liver, there's so many out there. The supplement needs and trained to buy JP ones. God, that was a mouthful this morning. Are definitely ones that I'd be looking at, and they're the ones I use myself. So yeah, it's definitely worth supplementing with something that does help with your liver and kidney function when you're on cycle.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to thyroid levels, thyroid function, do you see a lot of issues with that with competitors coming to you?
Yeah, again, that's another thing that can take a hit after a diet phase and take a long time to come back again. It's down regulated, and then we've also got the added complication of people implementing thyroid support during a prep to try and boost that thyroid function, and then cold turkeying it afterwards, and that just tanking. So not only have you got a down regulation of your hormones because of a diet phase, but you'll have a down regulation of your thyroid. Your coach then suggests that you implement thyroid supplementation, and you get to the end of the prep and you just pull it all out. Your body isn't going to be able to suddenly upregulate its thyroid overnight. There is the ability to titrate that dosage down rather than just going cold turkey, which may help with that post prep fatigue. But there's also, another lot of good supplements the thyroid stack from Supplement Needs. I've got a client who had been utilizing that and had seen an improvement of their thyroid off the back. Well, it was probably a mixture of that and increase in calories that has helped with that as well. Again, it was one of those sort of not really boosting their diet as much as they should have been in off season to help support that thyroid function.
Yeah, and if people are using the thyroid support through preps, how would you kind of approach after prep and, you know, like tapering that down? Like would you give it a few weeks? How much would you taper it down?
I think over a sort of a few weeks is probably reasonable. It depends obviously on the dosage. I have seen some horrific dosages through prep. So yeah, taking that down gradually is probably preferred. I'm a bit, I don't know, my medical head is like, should you really be utilizing any thyroid support? Because that is a quite potent pharmaceutical during a prep. Yeah, I personally struggle with, because I have seen it used so regimented in the medical setting. Yeah, I'm a bit wary of thyroid support, if I'm honest, because unfortunately you could become reliant on that through down regulation of your thyroid to a kind of irreversible state. Yeah.
And I think people just throw it in sometimes when they're like, I just need to lose more weight and I don't really care. Like, I don't think people realize like how important the thyroid is to, you know, how you feel, how you actually like function, because I have naturally have low thyroid anyway. And when obviously then when getting on the back end of a prep and you know, you've had synthetic stuff in there as well as stuff, you're like, yeah, okay, that's why I feel like this. but people don't know. They'll just buy some off someone on the internet and do like, right, go on, I'll have 2 of them a day, and they don't know what they're doing it for, like well, what it's doing to their body anyway, like if they don't.
Yeah, and it's that kind of throw it in like you would a fat burner. And actually, if you're not careful, it can start eating away at your muscle if you end up using it when you don't need to. So that's something to bear in mind. I mean, if you have the financial ability, I would recommend getting blood work done before implementing any thyroid support. Find out where your thyroid is. Do you need it? You know, I've had coaches advise for me to use thyroid support, and something we've learned through this most recent prep is I don't need it. I've not utilized any thyroid support in the prep that we did for Toronto or Empro, and we're not planning on utilizing it again for the Olympia prep because we know my body doesn't need it. So why would I put something else in that I don't need to use and could then cause other issues that don't need to be there?
Yeah, absolutely. How much do you think like your medical background and being in the NHS and that environment for so long has like helped you? Because I would imagine that someone very underinformed takes silly risks sometimes, whereas you're coming in and you just have all of this knowledge. Like, do you think that's really helped you kind of?
It's a weird one because Dan has said for ages, he's like, you've got so much knowledge, you need to be utilizing it. And I don't see it. And then we'll have conversations. Like he was asking me, I can't remember what it was now. Oh, that was it. We were talking about carb loading into a show and how, you know, there's quite a big thing about, right, deplete, whacking a load of carbs. So you've got a digestive system that has been slowed through the lack of food for the last X amount of months. You've been eating chicken and rice with the occasional rice cake, the occasional cream of rice, and now you're chucking in burgers, chips, muffins onto this slow, sluggish digestive system, and you wondered why you spilled come show day. Like basically, your digestive system peristalsis slows down when you don't put food in it. So then you can't expect it to suddenly respond when you chuck a burger and chips and function like it did mid-off season. It's not going to, because it takes time for those signals to upregulate that natural process again. So instead of just going from 3 days of depletion to a fuck ton of carbs, why not just titrate them a little bit more gradually and get that digestive system used to working again, and utilize foods that you've been eating during the whole of prep, not something just because you fancy that burger because you haven't had it for X amount of weeks. Wait until post show when you're not going to, when spilling doesn't matter. Do you know, it's that sort of thing that I didn't realize that is so sort of, I don't know, Dan constantly just tells me like, yeah, you've got a lot of knowledge that you can apply to bodybuilding, and I suppose I doubt myself too much.
Yeah,
really.
we're starting a YouTube mini series next. You heard it first. What are the plans now for the next few weeks leading up to the Olympia?
Oh, it's all go. I've got guest posing at FitX Gateshead for Eval on the 17th of September. So that's what, 2 weeks away. Yeah. Slightly shitting a brick about that. We're moving to Suffolk, as well as I'm on a training course for a new job. I'm training to be a disability assessor as opposed to working in the ambulance service. So yeah, we're trying to move house around my Monday to Friday 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30 as it's been this week, as well as training, as well as being on prep. So it's all of the hectic, and I'm slightly overwhelmed with how we're going to fit it all in, but hopefully we should do. Yeah,
I'm sure you will.
What
We
is-
always make it work.
Yeah, it just has to be done, right? We create time. We extend the day, 30-hour days. We always ask someone this question, but we'll slightly reword it for, we usually ask, what is your death row meal? So what is going to be your post-Olympia meal? What are you looking forward to?
I'm always, my go-to post-show is always a burger.
Yeah.
I'd say I did, after Toronto, I did try and have some pasta, and that was a bad idea. I ended up stomachache. Yeah. It was gnocchi of all things as well. So it was like cheese and pasta and potato. So yeah, it's normally some sort of burger and some sort of ice cream post show. And being as we're in America, I'm pretty damn sure we'll find. Dan's on about Cheesecake Factory.
Cheesecake Factory. But you need the Reese's one. Oh my God. Yeah, that's my death row. Yeah, just give me the entire Reese's baked cheesecake, please. That's it. So good.
Yeah, it'll be something like that. But we're unsure at the moment whether I'll go on and do Romania the week after.
Yeah.
It's kind of dependent on finances a little bit. Obviously, like I said, we've got quite a lot going on. So yeah, it depends where we're at with that. So it might be that I just end up having some sushi post-O, because I'll still be on prep, or it might be that I just think it's not going to happen. So let's enjoy the last few days in Florida. I don't know. I have to make my mind up the day of the Olympia whether I go on to do Romania. That's the last day I've got to sign the contract. So yeah, there'll be some putting our thinking hats on with that a little bit and trying to work out whether it's viable or not. It's logistics nightmare as well, because you can't fly from Florida to Romania. You'd have to come back to the UK. So yeah, trying to work out logistics and finances, whether doing that show would be possible or not. And then the cheap meal will be dependent on that a little bit.
Send pics.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody where to find you, where to get more information on the blood service and Eval and everything like that?
Yeah, so I've just got my Instagram page, which is my name, Romana Skotzen, IFBB Pro, fairly simple. I've got a link tree there, which has got the link to Eval, or Eval have their own Instagram page and website. If you just Google Eval, it's EVAL, and it will come up. Eval blood analysis, both on Instagram and on, if you're just Googling it. But yeah, they've got quite a lot of information on their website, breakdown of what markers are included in each and every test, why to have a bloodlet, and also offer IV therapy as well on there. So yeah, it's got quite a lot going on there.
Amazing. Yeah, guys, if you are in the UK, I absolutely recommend Eval. The detail that comes back with your test is incredible. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, top tier service. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in this week, and thank you, Romana, for coming on. Absolutely loved it. And we will see you all next week.
Thank you for
See you
having me.
later.